Christene Marie, and I'm looking forward to discussing this topic tonight around why we can really feel so afraid of the future. And often, I don't know about y'all, but I have often found that I can feel crippled at the thought of doing something that is frankly daring, that is requiring courage, that's even and perhaps even more so requiring vulnerability. And so I want to talk about this specifically tonight as it pertains to, well, why are we actually feeling so afraid of the future? And this really requires you and me going inward and asking some of these questions around why, perhaps even over and over again until we really arrive at a place where you and I can honestly look in the mirror and answer ourselves to that point. And to this ability to answer ourselves honestly, I have found it's been really, really a hard journey for me to even find myself safe enough to answer honestly. A couple weeks ago, I was actually driving and I just kept asking myself why over and over again. Like, why do I keep falling back into this pattern of being scared about what people think? And I just kept asking myself over and over, and I was, taking different angles, and why is this there? Because it really, the thing that we're afraid of, the thing that prevents us from being able to walk in accordance with our mission can really be the very thing that stops us, prevents us, and holds us back from living a full life that we love, from living a life that is chock full of meaning. And inevitably, it could be the thing that really causes us to have the greatest regret. So, for us to kind of get out ahead of being able to even live in accordance with our purpose, yesterday we talked about identity. The day before that, we talked about purpose. And so, for us to be able to kind of address these questions and ask ourselves, what is my purpose? Who really am I? And really looking at the real, honest to God truth about what is going on inside of us. It's you and me against ourselves at the end of the day. Are we willing to ask ourselves the hard questions? Are we willing to confront and square off with the person in the mirror, even if no one else ever knows? And there's something about us being willing to think that, frankly, we're worthy without anyone else having to be there, having anybody else know. And I say that, and as I even say that, there's a very cultural element around this, at least how I grew up culturally, where I felt really silly for doing things that I enjoyed or things that I liked growing up. I was really conditioned in a beautiful way, but I was conditioned to really only live my life in service of others. And so the thought of doing something that was purely just for me just felt so selfish. And even still today, even as I say that sentence, are we worthy, without anyone else even knowing, is that enough? Are you enough? Am I enough to know the truth about ourselves, to fulfill on our mission, to find joy without even anybody else knowing what's going on inside of us? And maybe even somebody else not being impacted. I had this realization a couple months ago where I really believe that my mission is surrounding emotional health and around emotional intelligence. So, to the extent that I am pursuing this mission, I'm supposed to be cultivating it for myself, but also, man, do I want to see families stay together and not be broken up. Boy, do I want to see kids growing up knowing how to engage with emotions, working in organizations, working with senior leadership so that they can lead from this top down approach and really love well and lead well. And it starts with the individual. So I have this very big vision and this big dream. But a couple weeks ago, I have really had to sit down and ask myself, even if I never saw this kind of change that I want to see in the people and communities around me, businesses around me, if I never saw that, is my mission still worth doing, even though it might just be me changing? What if I never see the impact? What if I never know of the impact? Am I compelled enough by the mission for its own sake? And do I find it worthy enough for simply me to be changed as a result? How much am I living my life based off of everybody else? How much am I living my life based on what other people will think or even be changed, be helped so much of my value has been derived by everybody else's opinion, everybody else's experience, because that's a big part of it. That's I think that that's kind of like this honest reality that I've really had to come to terms with, that it's not just what do people think that I've been really consumed by for the majority of my life, but it was also, well, are people feeling impacted? Are they feeling changed? Is their life better because of me? And if the answer was no, or if I could not quantify my own success and worth by the betterment of those around me, then it was kind of this very depressing, um, and kind of dark answer as a result of that. It got very nihilistic quickly, of like, well, what is the point? If I'm not here for other people, if I'm not making their lives better, then why do I even live? Why am I even here? And so us having clarity of our why are we here, and knowing, okay, well, what would happen if I didn't do it? So this question of, well, why am I so afraid? Do we have a compelling enough reason for courage, or is the reason for fear that much louder, that much more resonant in our minds? Where, man, fear just has a louder voice. It is at the microphone in our mind. It's at the microphone of our thoughts. It is the one at the helm of our ship, and it's driving and it's orienting our direction. There's this concept where it says the tongue is a small part of the body, yet it steers the whole ship. And our thoughts are like that in so many ways. Our thoughts translates into our speech, and then it shows up and permeates the rest of our lives. So if we really want to glean and kind of gain control of ourselves, it's really analyzing, what are my thoughts? And are my thoughts being propelled by the love that I feel for the mission, for even myself? Because here's the correlation that's so important. The mission and you, the mission and me, is that enough to undergo the change and experience necessary to then hope and pray that others will be served and impacted as a result? But it might not be in our lifetime. Y'all, think of the greats over the last 2,000 years, people who have painted, people who have sculpted, people who have come up with this art that they actually never saw the impact in their lifetime. But thank God they were not doing the thing for the attention, for the accolades, for the praise, for the impact. So, is our desire to be on a mission, to show up and dare greatly, predicated in something physical that we can see? And it's this really, really tough balance, especially because I am, I've got a business, and I'm an entrepreneur in some sense of the word. So I need to measure, and I need to actually have real key performance indicators in a physical way that's quantifying my success. Yet, may we never negate the ability for creation to be molded and iterated on, and expanded, and kind of like breathing life into something that is truly of original design. And so, because it's of original design, we actually don't have anything to compare it to. So, do we have the faith and kind of love breathing into our creation, breathing into the things that we pursue, to keep us going, where our why is not contingent even on impact, which is a wonderful, beautiful desire? But man, it's still oriented towards others. It's still oriented horizontally. It's still oriented and kind of requiring somebody else to come in and deem us worthy. So, do we have the innate pulling us forward? I did theater growing up, and my teacher at the time, she was like, imagine you've got like a string pulling you forward. So you're actually walking across the stage, like leading from your chest rather than kind of leading from your head, and you're not kind of head down walking across the stage. And I think of our purpose that way, where, man, we're just so internally pulled, and it's like, man, we can't help but move towards that thing. But y'all, for the extent and to the extent that we focus on the fear surrounding it, and fear so much has to do with the future that is predicated in the past, based on what we have not resolved, based on the things that we're carrying with us. It's like, man, we're tethered to whatever that narrative was, or that pain, what hasn't been processed, and then that's being thrown into the future, and we're projecting the pain of the past or the fear of the past onto the future. Fear is only ever future. If we're here in this present moment and we're truly in the moment, we're truly in the now, fear can exist. There's nothing to project because we're not thinking about the future. So really, truly, the ability to control our mind allows for us to kind of cancel out fear in and of itself. The ability to control the mind and be present. Both of those, they go so hand in hand. They're almost not, separate from each other. To be present is in one sense the very outpouring of controlling our mind and our thoughts. It's looking at the present moment and seeing the beauty of it and being in the now and staving off fear. But to be able to do that, man, does it require practice, and man, does it require like real tools to be able to exist in the now and to avoid the fear of the future. I'm just gonna jump over here in the chat. Shosh Cars, hello. I'm glad to see you. Bradshaw, hello. Retro Rocket, thanks for joining. Eureka, good to see you. It's been a while. Daniel, hello. Paul Jr., thanks for joining. I'm glad you're here. MWN says, where does low emotional intelligence come from? Gosh, well, we were taught how to read. We were taught math. We were taught science growing up to cultivate the intellectual intelligence. And I really believe that the emotional intelligence is an intelligence that must be cultivated, and it must be invested into, just like how financial intelligence, you can make all the money and not be intelligent about it. You can have all the emotions, but that does not mean that you're wise surrounding them. And so just as we study the intellect and just as we cultivate it and invest our time, effort, energy in it, I find that the same would be true for emotions. So just because somebody doesn't get angry, it does not mean that they're emotionally intelligent nor healthy. Are they suppressing the emotions, or are they processing them? Are those emotions going to come out at home? Maybe they don't come out in the office, but are they taking the pain or the anger or resentment with them into other rooms where actually it's not warranted at all in that regard? So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts in that. I think that, we could probably do a whole show on this, but really, truly, the lack of tools, the lack of cultivation. And frankly, emotions are the very thing that are the propelling agents in relationships. And relationships are the thing we do our entire lives. And we're not taught how to do relationships. We're not taught how to do emotions. They're the fabric that hold relationships together. That is emotions. So, man, do we feel shut out from people when they don't share their emotions with us? Man, do we feel not seen and not known? People don't know how to ask us questions and draw us out, among a myriad of other things. Husafel, hello. I love this. We are here to live a life of excellence. Oh, hello. Good to see you. Mr. Greenleaf, the Dawn, thanks for joining. Xive, hello. Christian Chessman, hello. Snake Hill, thanks for joining. Zancy, Roblox, hello. Usafel, I am. Philip, good to see you. Yeah, Zancy says Nikola Tesla died penniless. Man, and isn't that example alone? It's like, y'all, look, we cannot live for even the impact of others. Like, I think it's good, and this is so important for me because I've thought of this my whole life of I just want to make a difference. I was 18 years old and I was asked, what do you want to do with your life? And I was like, I just want to make a difference. I just want to love people. But even if I don't see the outcome of the thing that I feel called to do in my lifetime, is it still worth doing? Or is it only worth doing if I can tangibly see the outcome, if I can tangibly see the difference I'm making? And that's a really hard question. And my desired answer is that I don't need to see it. And still, it's encouraging, I think, to know that we're making the impact. But Larry Ziegler says, what is my mission? I would love to hear, actually, from those of you who are here in the chat. I'd love to know, how did you guys come to know what your mission was? Did you I don't know, like what was your kind of I guess you could say awakening moment to being like, "Oh, that's it," because I didn't know what my mission was for so long. I was 18 years old saying I wanted to make a difference, and it wasn't until much later in my life that I realized like, "Oh, that's actually it was a decade later when I realized what my mission was." So I was 28. But yeah, I really it took me a while. So I'd love to hear, y'all, what if you guys are willing to share, how did you come to know what your mission is? And I will caveat it with this. I could see my mission changing. There might be something else that happens that adds a layer to it, or maybe that changes it, or maybe I fulfill my mission and I get on another one. But I do believe, my motto says, "I don't have a mission. I'm just here." I do believe. This is personally what I believe. I believe that each one of us has a specific. It's like we add a specific whisper to the cacophony of the world's song. We each have like this element of the divine that no one else has. We have like this sparkle of God to bring and add to the world. And I do think that some people may have a larger, louder contribution, whereas others might be smaller. But man, I think each one of us does have something really, really important to give, and I think when we don't see the importance of our life, I think that's when we actually stop living. But man, if we have a belief, a firm belief, an innate belief that our life has meaning and we have a purpose, we're compelled, we're drawn from within, like that example of my acting teacher talking about, feel like lead your life as though you're being pulled from within. And that concept from being internally taught. That is the Latin root of intuition, intuere, to be taught from within. And it's kind of like, okay, well, if I'm being taught and being led from within, well, then my actions are going to be a direct ramification and reflection of my internal state. So, man, if I want to live a life of purpose, then man, I better spend time, to what you were saying earlier about low emotional intelligence. I better spend time cultivating it so that then I can live accordingly. Just jumping back here in the chat. Um, Larry, hello. Jim Bob, hello. Just scrolling. Levy, hello. Levy, that's funny. Absolute. Fred, Mr. Mystery, hello. Nathan, Efley, hello. Y'all, I'm sorry that I need to jump off. It's so late for me. I'm on the East Coast right now and it's almost 2 a.m. So I need to run. We're doing actually DC tomorrow. So I need to jump off, but I wanted to make sure. I've been going live every day for over a year now. And so I wanted to make sure I didn't lose my streak. But it's funny. I almost didn't come on tonight, and it's important that we have clarity of our why and clarity of our mission, because that is the thing that moves us to take action even when our emotions don't line up. I really wanted to go to bed, and who knows to what extent tonight's show was even just purely for my sake, to remind me, man, my why needs to be greater than not just my own emotions, not just the impact of what's going on around me, and even the lives changed. That is not why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I am like adherent to a superordinate principle, something greater and far better than me. And so it is in the concept of like service to the higher ordinance that I'm like, man, I better, and I want to, not just I better, but I want to live my life accordingly. Because man, is there anything better than to live, as Theodore Roosevelt talks about, living in the arena, to know the taste of triumph, to know the taste of failure, and to live for something greater than myself? Therein lies so much hope, always, no matter what's going on outside of us. Just jumping back here in the chat. Y'all, thank you so much for joining. I am Queen. Hello. Thanks for joining, Alex. Rich, thanks for jumping on here. Jeff, Rich, thanks for hanging out tonight. I thought I saw Zing. Hello. Thought I saw my friend. Jimbo, good to see you. Alex, thank you. Thank you so much for joining. Um, I thought I saw Brian, you are here. Hello. C. Martin Love, hello. Oh, I'm so glad you guys joined. I know this was like one of the latest shows, but so glad to see you guys. Y'all have a wonderful evening. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in. Subscribe if you'd like to come back and join us, and I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night.